Wild card weekend just wrapped up, and we're about to advance to the divisional week. So let's take a look at the tight end landscape and get our dynasty rankings. I've got my top 12 tight ends for you. Going to break them down into different tiers, tell you why I have these guys where they're ranked, tell you whether I'm buying, whether I'm selling, give you some thoughts on the tight end landscape as we move towards our next rookie draft, which is going to have some more tight end names that could have an impact on this list. It's another solid tight end class. So lots to break down here on the Face Off Sports Network. And getting started with our tight end rankings, we got to remember there's settings that are going to be different all across leagues, whether you're a half PPR, full PPR, or even a tight end premium. That's going to kind of impact what we want to do with these tight ends, how much you're going to pay. So keep that in mind whenever I'm saying buy, sell. Your league settings may vary for what you want to do. But let's get started with the absolute obvious. Let's get to our tier one, which is going to be Brock Bowers and Trey McBride. No surprises here. I think we all understand Brock Bowers, 23 years old. Yes, he's on the Raiders, a limited offense, but we've seen massive production from him. Tight end 1 in 2024. This past season, tight end 9, derailed by injury, so don't put too much stock in it, but he's an elite pass catcher. Had more touchdowns this year in less games with 7, averaged over 7.5 yards per target. Again, over 10.5 yards per catch. Just a monster when he gets the ball in his hands. He's a complete difference maker. He looks the part. I think the injuries kind of derailed what we think, and I think there's going to be a lot of people that want to put McBride ahead of him. I'm not going to fault you. I've got these two guys in the same tier. If you want to go back and forth on them, that's fine. I mean, of course, we saw a historic season from Trey McBride, which we can talk more about that in a moment. But looking at Brock Bowers and what he is, I think he's going to be really, really good. I mean, he was a highly touted prospect coming into the process. Absolutely lived up to it immediately. If he can get healthy, he's going to be just fine. If he gets stable quarterback play, he's going to be just fine. I mean, it's been really bad for him so far, and he's already been a fantastic playmaker. So I love Bowers. I'm going to buy him if I can. Moving forward to Trey McBride, a historic season for him. Second in the NFL with 126 catches. That's insane. Just a monster season. The Cardinals, not very good team. They kind of ended the season throwing the ball an insane amount. Finishes the year as the tight end 1, tight end 3 last year, 9 before that, when he really had his breakout. Before that, early rookie season where he kind of just was hidden, but you saw some flashes. This year we got the double-digit touchdowns with 11. That's awesome. My biggest concern with Trey McBride going forward is going to be the quarterback play. We saw what happened. Kyler Murray gets injured. Jacoby Brissett comes into this offense and was a more proficient passer. We talked about that throughout the season with the mediators, but looking at what he did week to week, he was throwing the ball an insane amount. Tons of games with 30 plus, 40 plus, 50 attempts on the day, and we saw McBride be a huge benefactor of that. Michael Wilson was too, but McBride had multiple games with over 10 targets, multiple games with 13 targets. That's insane to close out the year. So that volume was massive, which gave him a ton of yards, a ton of opportunities for touchdowns, and it really, really skyrocketed his value. I would absolutely be buying. Can you buy him? Probably not. If you're in a dynasty league, it's going to be tough to pry him off any manager, and that's justifiable. I mean, he looks like a guy who's going to be really, really good going forward. The difference here between him and Bowers, while it might not be something right now because they're both young, McBride's 3 years older. So that's kind of another thing to consider if you're going out to buy one of these guys and you're going to pay up a ton. I like Bowers because you're already getting 3 years of basically the exact same production. So go out there, check the price if you can, but be ready to get shut down because it's going to be too expensive. Let's carry on to my tier 2 here. And I think this is someone who I think deserves to be in their own tier. And so I put him there, and that's going to be Colston Loveland. Another fantastic prospect coming in to the NFL this season. He was a rookie for the Bears, only 21 years old. We said it all offseason that he is one of the youngest players in the entire draft. He's still a couple months away from even being 22. So we have to keep that in mind with what he can do. He certainly came into his own as the season went on. I mean, led the Bears and, yards and receptions. So monster season from the young tight end who really didn't start the season on a hot streak. I mean, he came into the game, with some injuries in the offseason, so kind of derailed his start. Wasn't necessarily getting a bunch of the snaps, and then finished the year getting over 50% of the snaps from basically week 7 on, excuse me. And then he goes on to finish the season and really, really became a huge playmaker for this offense and for Caleb Williams. Looking at what he did, finishing as tight end 12, not a ton of stock in that. 82 catches for 82 targets with 58 catches and just over 700 yards and 6 touchdowns. But really what we want to look at is how he closed the year. We saw in week 17, he had 10 targets, 94 yards and a touchdown. Week 18, 13 targets, 10 catches, 91 yards, a touchdown. The playoffs, he continued to go off too. I mean, another monster week with him in the wild card week where he really carried this Bears team. So I think he's going to be a guy that we can certainly rely on, and I would go buy him if you can. In our rankings in the past season before the draft, I personally had Loveland higher than Warren. We talked a lot about that. A lot of people laughed when the Bears took Loveland over Warren, but I think there was merit there. Warren is certainly a good player, and we'll get to him in a minute, but looking at Loveland, he has the ability to create space. He has a knack for finding space, and after the catch, he just makes things happen. His production profile at Michigan was just limited because of the offense. I think a lot of people took that for granted for what he can really do for an NFL team. We saw what he did slotted in this offense. Ben Johnson loves the tight end. We saw multiple top tight end seasons from Sam Laporta in Detroit, and now we're getting it here in Chicago with a young tight end who's going to have plenty of room to grow. I mean, looking at the wild card weekend, guys, he had 15 targets, caught 8 of them for 137 yards. He was so important to that team's win. It's not even funny. When they need a first down, Caleb Williams is hunting for Colston Loveland. So I think Loveland's going to be a big-time playmaker as we move forward. Again, the age, the production, everything there looks like he's going to be an absolute monster. I mean, yards per route run over 1.6, target share at 19%, air yards 14%. So I like what I'm seeing from Colston Loveland. I think he's going to continue to grow and get better as he moves forward. But let's talk about tier 3, and let's get to the counterpart of what I just mentioned. Let's talk about Tyler Warren and Tucker Kraft. Tyler Warren, starting there, a rookie coming in, a little older than Colston Loveland, coming in from Penn State. He's kind of a do-it-all player, maybe a little bit more of a late breakout. He started the season hot, multiple games at the beginning of the season with double-digit points, including about, depending on your league format, 5 of the first 7 weeks. Tailed off towards the end, which a lot of that we can attribute to what happened to this Colts team. They completely got derailed halfway through the season. Started out really hot. Daniel Jones goes down. Season just kind of implodes from there. My concerns with Tyler Warren are what's going to happen with this team going forward. He's going to be a fine player. He's got plenty of opportunity. We saw him not necessarily make a bunch of missed tackles for us like he did in college, whereas the guy we were just talking about, Colston Loveland, was making people miss quite frequently. But focusing on Tyler Warren here, guys, I think he's got the volume. I mean, we saw 112 targets, 76 catches, 800 yards, only 4 touchdowns, finishing as the tight end 5 on the season. A great year. I just have concerns about what's going to happen with this offense going forward. What's the quarterback solution? Because Daniel Jones tears his Achilles. He certainly could get signed and he comes back in, but what's that going to mean? Is it going to continue to limit this offense? Can he still produce? I don't know. I have questions. I have concerns. So I'm pivoting off Tyler Warren if I can, but only if I can go get one of these guys in, those first 2 tiers, or Tucker Kraft in this same tier. I'm not really looking to take Tyler Warren and flip him into, say a Ferguson or someone like that. I want to stay within these first couple tiers so that way I'm continuing to get an elite prospect, an elite player, and just, taking and shifting that risk a little bit. But let's talk about Tucker Kraft now. Having a monster season weeks 1 through 8. Unfortunately, week 9, he hits with the injury and he goes down for the rest of the season. Really, really derailed everything. I mean, he was looking fantastic, had 100 points in just the first 8 weeks, depending on your league format, multiple double-digit games, multiple 20-point games. I mean, he was an absolute monster, guys. 7 targets, 10 targets, 9 targets, 124 yards, 143 yards, a double-digit touchdown, a 2-touchdown game. And then he had 4 other games with a touchdown. So a monster season, got derailed by the injury. So you hate to see it. Whatever happens, he's going to come back and be fine. I mean, we saw him be the tight end 9 last year where he played all 17 games. He played 17 games the year before that. So injuries, not too concerned about whether that's going to be something we have to think about long term. We've seen him be a touchdown guy. He had 7 touchdowns in 2024, 6 this season in just the 8 games he played. He's going to be fine. I mean, 50 catches for 700 yards. And the thing that he did that these other guys aren't necessarily as good at, he forced so many missed tackles and he just makes tons of plays going downfield. So I love Tucker Kraft. I am absolutely buying the injury dip if I can. I mean, if we look at what he was doing, 16 points per game this season, monstrous opportunity there. Had over 2 yards per route run. The target share 19%. What we know about this Green Bay offense is they kind of spread the wealth all over the place, but he was the one consistent factor every single week. And I want to take advantage of that if I can. If someone's off on him because he's injured, if someone's interested in maybe one of these rookies that came up this year, because we've got a couple more. I mean, we've only talked about 2, but again, this tight end class this past year was really, really good. There's some more we're going to talk about. So I would be willing to take one of them and see if I can move up to Tucker Kraft. Depending on your league, depending on your settings, you might be able to even get a plus out of that just because of the injury dip. So explore that opportunity if you can. And let's carry on to tier 4 and talk about some of these other guys. I've got Harold Fannin Jr., Sam Laporta. If you followed us last year, what you know is Harold Fannin Jr. was one of my absolute favorite prospects in the entire draft. If I said it once, I said it 100 times. He was my favorite film to watch in the entire offseason. When the lights were the brightest for the young kid out of Bowling Green, he balled out. His 2 best games of his career were against Texas A&M and Penn State. Now that means maybe not as much as it did right now with Penn State falling off, but the year before, that was a really good defense, and he made them look like fools. He was an absolute monster in college, led all tight ends in receptions and missed tackles force and yards. Everything you could want, he was absolutely doing. He steps into this Browns offense, which is not a very good offense or a very good team, and he absolutely produced. Tight end 6 on the year, 107 targets, 72 catches, 731 yards, and 6 touchdowns, averaging over 10 yards per catch. A fantastic year for Harold Fannin Jr., the rookie, only 22 years old. He's another young guy. The big question for him was the size. Can he sit down, put his hand in the dirt, and block? Still has a lot to work on there. Won't deny that at all. But what he showed is elite playmaking ability to sit in space, make something happen after the catch, and provide a safety blanket for whatever quarterback's there. Because he did it throughout the entire season for multiple different quarterbacks playing for this Browns team. We saw a 24% target share from him, 28% of the air yards. I mean, just you couldn't ask for more production from a guy in a bad offense. And when we step back and think, okay, well, what happens with this offense? They don't necessarily have a wide receiver, so they could certainly add someone. I'm not worried about that. David Njoku, a free agent, so he could easily be on the move, and Harold Fannin steps into more opportunity. We're going to have a new coach at the head. We're going to have a new offense coordinator. We're probably going to have a big-time quarterback decision to be made by whoever steps into those shoes, which has not been done just yet. But I'm not concerned. Again, I saw a lot that I really, really liked from Harold Fannin in the offseason, and it showed up this year on the film, in the box score. You can see that he's going to be a vital playmaker for this offense going forward. That's why I have him here at tight end 6. I get it's a little bit bold, maybe a little bit too expensive for some people, but when you're going after a guy who's going to be 22 years old, you have to make a move. You have to find a way to get them on your roster before it's too late. And right now is a great opportunity to do it. People aren't going to be thinking about that. Had some low weeks, but certainly closed out business at the end of the season. Multiple games with double-digit targets. Had at least 2 targets in every single game he played in. And only, just the last game of the season for him, week 17, did he have only 2 targets. Every other week he had over 4 targets. So I really like Harold Fannin Jr. He's going to be a big-time playmaker, I think, for this Browns offense going forward. But carrying on to Sam Laporta, who I have as my next tight end, I'm not going to lie, it's difficult for me because I think Sam Laporta is someone that we have to be thinking about moving off of if we can. Coach with us at the Mediators talks about it all the time. When you have a back injury, you never get away from a back injury. You always have it. Sam Laporta missed the entire second half of the season with a back injury. I mean, he started out the season pretty hot, looking like he could have another good fantasy season. We've seen him be the tight end 1, tight end 7 2 years ago. in 2024. And then this season finished as a tight end 27, only 40 catches on 49 targets for 489 yards in 9 games. Great yards per catch, over 12 in that regard. I mean, Laporta's going to be fine. This is a high-powered offense with lots of playmakers. Sometimes he's going to have some lulls just because you've got Gibbs, you've got Monty, you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. We see Isaac Tesla stepping in. And then you got J-Mo too. So there's lots of pieces to this Detroit offense. We'll see who they end up hiring as their offensive coordinator. I'm really intrigued. Maybe they get someone that wants to get back to the run game. Maybe they focus on spreading it out a little bit more. Whatever happens, though, I think that Sam Laporta is going to be a fine player when he plays. But the health is a major, major factor to this. And I won't lie, I'm a little bit scared of it. So I think that there's something to at least monitor with him. I would check the price. If you can get him cheap and you want to go pay for him to get a tight end for you, that's fine. I mean, I did it in the league this past season where, I paid a first to go get Sam Laporta at the beginning of the year. It was awesome. Those first 9-10 weeks, I was doing great. Once he got hurt, that really, really set me back. I was fortunate because I drafted Harold Fannin in the 3rd round. But, it's something that you have to be able to check the risk, see what the manager wants, see if it's within your dynasty budget, if you will, and step back and think, okay, can I take this 25-year-old tight end who has a little bit of risk associated with his name, and, is it something that I can slot into my lineup right now? Or is this going to be a flex piece? Laporta's really, really good. So if, I have one of these guys already that's ahead of him, I'm probably not looking to add him. Go add another piece. If you need to jump up from, you're a guy that's starting TJ Hawkinson or Hunter Henry, yeah, check the price of Sam Laporta, see what you can do to move up to go get him. But just don't overpay, because I think if you're going to spend the cost to go get one of these high-end tight ends, you should just go to the higher tiers and just get the safer play. But let's carry right on. Let's get to my tier 5 here, which is going to have – I really wanted to separate these out into 2 tiers, but I decided to keep them in the same tier. And I've got Kyle Pitts, Aronde Gadsden, and Terrence Ferguson. The obvious is to separate the 2 rookies, 9-10, Gadsden and Ferguson, respectively, away from Kyle Pitts. I think Kyle Pitts is such an interesting decision this offseason. He's going to be a free agent. We'll see what the team does. Do they put the franchise tag on him? He's 25 years old. He's one of the most highly touted tight end prospects to come into the NFL when he was drafted by the Atlanta Falcons many moons ago, inside of the top, what was it? I think 6th overall or 5th overall. I can't remember what pick it was, but it was a top 10 pick. He finally paid off the cost this season. He had the tight end 2 year worth 118 targets, 88 catches, 928 yards, and 5 touchdowns. I'm intrigued to see what we have to get from this Falcons offense. I mean, we're going to have a new coach, and have a new offense coordinator. Matt Ryan steps in as the team president. They're hiring a GM. Pitts is a guy who had lots of good games this year. I mean, he had a 40-point game in Week 15 against Tampa Bay where he had 11 catches for 166 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had multiple games with 10 targets, multiple games over 5 targets each week. I mean, he has the volume. He has the opportunity in this offense. The touchdowns is a big issue for him. I mean, he had 5 on the year, and 3 of them came in 1 game. So the rest of the year, he was just kind of limiting himself to just getting the catches and the yards, which he can certainly do. But when we look at Pitts and we see what you have to pay, I'm okay if someone says, hey, give me the 110 for Kyle Pitts. I would pay that price. If they're wanting the 105, you shouldn't do it. If they're wanting the 106, you shouldn't do it. Now, I get it. This is a down draft class, but I'm not ready to move that pick just yet, even though I'm not necessarily interested in making a selection right now. It's because what we know is these draft picks are going to accrue in value every single day that we get closer and closer to the draft. Why is that? Even with a down class, people are going to want the opportunity to make a pick. Hold it for right now. A lot of people are going to tell you to sell it. A lot of people are going to say flip it into a 27 first. And I'm not necessarily against that, but I do think that we're judging the class a little bit too soon. Even I think the class is down, but what we know is there's going to be at least 12 players that people are going to be excited about once we get landing spots, because the landing spots will dictate everything. If Nick Singleton, the running back from Penn State, gets drafted in the 2nd round of the Kansas City Chiefs, everyone's going to explode and want to draft him. His stock will shoot up significantly. So just hold on to those picks if you're wanting to move off of them, and let's see what happens. But Kyle Pitts, focusing on the tight end here, I think he's got the opportunity to continue to be good. Maybe a change of scenery would be, the best thing for him. I'm just in a hold pattern. I'm not really sure that I want to go out and buy him. I'm not really sure I want to go out and sell him. I just think right now we need to see what happens with his free agency. Is he going to find his way in a better offense and a better situation? I mean, heck, what if Atlanta let him walk and he ended up in Kansas City? That'd be the dream location where he gets to go to a guy who we know in Patrick Mahomes wants to target the tight end position, and maybe he just becomes a great pairing that we have going forward. But let's move on to the two rookies here. Let's talk about Oronde Gadsden first. Started out the year pretty good. I mean, he didn't play in the first two games. He finally gets his real opportunity in week 3 where he had 7 targets. Didn't really do too much with it. But then we get to weeks 6, 7, and 8 where he had 9, 25, and 16 points. Closed out the year, not necessarily on the same frame. Didn't do as much. But what we saw was kind of a little bit of a tailspin from this Chargers offense. Herbert had a broken hand. We lost both left tackles. There were injuries to the running back room. So this Chargers team just started relying on their defense. I think Gadsden's going to be a fine player going forward, but it might be a little bit capped and it might be a little bit inflated right now. So I wouldn't be opposed to taking him right now and selling him, or even using him to flip into one of these other tight ends we've previously talked about. So check with your league, see what the options are out there. I wouldn't go and pay the price for him because most people are going to want to play off first right now, and I'm not necessarily willing to make that bet right now because he didn't have enough production for me to say, okay, I know he's going to be a monster going forward. I mean, he played over 50% of the snaps basically from week 5 on, and a lot of these games he had 50, 70, 80% of the snaps, and he was getting 2-3 targets and just doing nothing really with it. So he wasn't goosing you, which is always good to see, but you don't want to pay a first to go get a guy who got you 3 points, 5 points, 3 points, 1 point, 8 points, 1 point, 10 points, 3 points. That's how he closed out the season. So I think there's better options out there for you. Don't pay that price. Looking at Terrence Ferguson, this is an interesting one for me because I think this is where you make the bet. You make the call on what do you have to pay to go get a guy who has some opportunity to be better going forward. Didn't get consistent playing time, had lots of injuries to start the year. But when we get to week 16, he had 10 points against Seattle, 3 catches on 4 targets for a touchdown. Week 17, 2 catches, 54 yards and a touchdown. And then, we've seen Parkinson play well in this offense. We've seen Higbee do stuff in this offense. Terrence Ferguson was a guy that this team really, really wanted. They paid up to go get him. They were actively watching for him. They had film from their draft room where when they did end up selecting him, they were extremely hyped to get Terrence Ferguson on their team. We know McVay is going to run out there with a ton of tight ends, 2, 3 at a time sometimes, and I think he's going to be someone that can do it. He had some injuries going into the playoff rounds too, so Ferguson's only 22 years old. He was a rookie this year. I think he's got opportunity to continue to grow with this offense. So I would go out and buy him if you can. Buy him now because it's going to be cheaper than what he could become. He's someone I think right now you could throw probably a late second at and say, hey, this is a bad draft class. You take my dart throw. I'll take Terrence Ferguson. If you can get that deal done, absolutely do it. I'm totally fine with that draft cost or that pick cost. So make that deal happen. If you got a vet and you want to move off of him, get younger, maybe you're a rebuilding team, perfect move. I think he's a guy that could easily step into more opportunity as this offense goes forward. But let's get to our next guy here. Let's get to tier 6. And we're going to talk about Jake Ferguson and George Kittle. Now, I will say this is right after the wild card games here this week where unfortunately George Kittle just tore his Achilles. So I'm certainly going to move George Kittle down. I hate to say that, but let's focus on Jake Ferguson here, and let's talk about what he did this year in this offense with Dallas. We had another monster year, tied in 8 on the year, 102 targets, 82 catches for 600 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Depending on your format, it would certainly adjust that, and he'd finish higher because of those touchdowns and those high reception numbers. But Ferguson is going to be a guy I think that is another slow play. People are going to be not necessarily thrilled with how he finished the year because he had not any double-digit points from week 11 on in a half PPR league. if it's tight end premium league, he eclipsed it a couple times, but the touchdown number is nice with 8. The reception number is great. The yardage was not necessarily fantastic, but keeping in mind who he was playing with, both Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, who had fantastic years. Obviously, Javonte Williams had a good year too. I think it kind of decreased his numbers a little bit. So if George Pickens does move on, there's volume for him to inherit. We know that Dak's going to target him. We know that Dak is going to use him. So I like the opportunity to go get a guy like Jake Ferguson right now. I would go and buy. It's a great time to buy. I mean, when we look at his age, he's 27 years old. So he's right at that time we can say, okay, I'm going to push the chips in, go get this tight end to be my guy for the year, and I will use him for the entire season and try and win a championship. That's a great move, in my opinion. He signed a deal with Dallas. He's not going anywhere, and we know Dallas is going to throw the ball. Dak, when healthy, throws the ball an absolute ton, and he produces a bunch of fantasy points throwing the ball through the air, and he highlights his receivers and highlights his tight end. So Jake Ferguson is absolutely someone that I would be buying if I can. And then, like I said, closing out here with George Kittle, unfortunate timing on the injury there. So I would not have him here. I'd probably slot him down, move someone up like maybe a TJ Hawkinson, maybe a Brenton Strange. So keep that in mind. George Kittle, if you do have him, it's probably too late for you really to do anything. If you sell him right now, you're probably selling him for pennies on the dollar. But if you don't sell him, I mean, at the same time, guys, Kittle is a guy who's already 32, now has a torn Achilles. It's not looking good. So if you can move off of him for anything, contemplate it long and hard. Had he not been injured, I probably would have said, I want an early second to move Kittle, something like that. Maybe you can squeeze out a first in an ultra tight end premium league, but generally speaking, I don't think anyone's going to pay that because of his age. Now with the injury, you're not even going to sniff that. So if someone offers you a couple third-round picks, I'd probably take it just because you're more likely than not going to have him next season at all, nor are you going to be able to really trust a guy who's going to be 34 when he does end up playing again. So keep that in mind going forward, but be sure to check out all the other rankings we have here on the Face Off Sports Network. Lots of content coming out. Rookie stuff is just around the corner. We've got another video of the wide receiver dynasty rankings coming out here soon, so we'll be sure to catch you in the next one.